Well, we're here. Boris is here early too. We love it when Boris joins us early here on Unverified. So much to discuss. We appreciate you spending your Tuesday evening here with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Kyle, David, I'm Tony. We are here fresh off a test with Mick Schumacher and some other drivers at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Kyle and David are back from Petit Le Mans. We're going to review that race over the weekend. Gentlemen, welcome back from Georgia. I know we spent the majority of yesterday together. We have so much to discuss, some driver news today, projecting the future of what the 2026 IndyCar lineup will look like. But welcome back to Unverified, gentlemen.
That's great to be back. What a week. Obviously, Petit Le Mans for both Kyle and I is one of our favorite events all year. I think we both had a great time down there. I think everybody really had a great time down there, except for when you were sitting in traffic, because holy smokes. The race sold out, and boy, did it feel like it on Friday and Saturday getting in there. But that's a good thing. It's a good sign for the sport. I think we were all treated to a great race down there. And then we hustled our asses back up here to go see Mick Schumacher on the IMS road course. And as you mentioned, Tony, I think there's a lot of interesting things that we learned yesterday that we'll be able to kind of discuss today. And yeah, I guess the one thing I would say, you know what, we just need to have a test I guess it's not Nashville anymore. The day next year, I don't care what it is, just we got to be at a racetrack like the day or two after Laguna Seca. Because I'll tell you what, I was going to be all sad boy going into here. I was like, oh my God, the racing season's over. But I was at a racetrack yesterday, so I'm good. Kyle? Also, Kyle, you were spinning around Boris. Poor Boris. He
Yeah.
was in the gaming
Well,
chair. You
yeah,
put
you
him in
might
the
have seen
spin
that
cycle.
on my Twitter. He's been doing this thing recently where I work from home, because I manage social media accounts, so I don't go to a job. Sorry. He's been doing this thing where he likes to just crawl up in my lap and like sit, which is fine, right? It's very cute. But when he's doing it 8 times a day, it's a little bit annoying, right? So I put him in my roommate's desk chair next to me. And so he's just been kind of sitting next to me because he has to be involved, right? Like you saw him at the beginning of the show. He's back here. He wants to be in the background. He wants to be involved. So I sat him in the chair, and then when I spun it, it's literally the meme. Like you just look up the Pikachu dancing in the moonlight meme, and you'll understand what I was doing there. But yeah, he's got to be involved. It's just I don't understand it. But yeah, we were at a test yesterday. We were watching IndyCars, and we were at a sold out Petit 2 days before that. So to reiterate what David said, life's pretty good, and we're gonna see IndyCars on the freaking oval next week. So it's not
What
hey,
are you
off
doing back
season
there,
is
Tony? Are you
I'm
putting
good.
the
why are you
95 500 on?
okay? I was gonna say
95.
we started with us on there, so we were seeing
Well,
triple
I was
vision.
hoping that just the picture of Mick's car that you did an awesome job on the graphic would just stay up and
Yeah.
maybe it wouldn't refresh. But yeah, we're just gonna watch some in Indy 500 highlights behind us. Yeah. So yesterday was, I think, a very important day for a lot of different drivers. I think obviously it starts with Mick Schumacher, which we're gonna spend a majority of the show probably discussing. But on the flip side of that, Kyle Collette, who is more than likely in line for the seat at AJ Foyt Racing in that number 4 car. As David, you mentioned in your video earlier today that you posted to your YouTube channel, Kyle was the only driver to not talk to the media, which I don't know what's going on back there, which was fine. They told us an engineering meeting. I don't know, but I know Kyle well enough to go discuss things with him. And it looks like it's happening. It looks like that's going to be hello, Boris. Looks like it's going to be the 4 car for Kyle Collette. We also saw Lockie Hughes get an opportunity to get a taste of an IndyCar for the first time. And I think that's where I want to start with you guys. Very interesting. Lockie Hughes has a lot of talent. I think he's excited to have Will Power under his own roof, which has been discussed a few times. Obviously, both Aussies, they've known each other for a very long time. But the TWG livery, which I didn't think looked all that bad, to be honest with you, the black and white down the side of the 98 car for your Andretti Global test driver, Lockie Hughes. Anything to read into that? I think Michael Andretti was a little bit in the news over the last couple of days, selling his Geist home here in Indianapolis for $11 million. I think we learned a few weeks ago that he was he was buying a house down in Florida. So let's start there because there's just so much to dive into. Your thoughts, David, on seeing that TWG logo and livery really for the first time, albeit in a test?
It's not really surprising. I mean, I think that as time goes on, and the fact that there really aren't any Andretti's affiliated with Andretti Global anymore, that name is going to have less and less meaning. And so I think this was kind of the first real public acknowledgement that the IndyCar team may at some point change its name. I had noticed throughout the season, in fact, that there were a couple of branding changes and identity changes just in general with that team. Some people who were wearing blue shirts at the beginning of the season were wearing black shirts at the end of the season. So I think that, you look at the rest of TWG's motorsport properties, and they kind of operate as TWG most of the time. So I wouldn't necessarily be surprised to see that kind of become the new normal for that team going forward. It's kind of, I'm curious about how long they plan to hang on to the Andretti name, how long they continue to keep that particular legacy going. I know Mario is still kind of involved with the Formula One team. Obviously, Marco's coming back for the Indy 500. But, in the future, I wonder how tightly knit that's really going to be with that particular name. And maybe this was the first kind of step with that. And I should say as well, Tony, I'm glad you brought that up, because Lockie Hughes, I think a lot of people forget. I know I was one of those people that forgot that he's a reserve driver for Andretti. And, I think we forget reserve drivers in IndyCar because most of them don't ever get a chance to actually drive an IndyCar. So
they're usually in basements.
Yeah, they're usually locked in the basement. Maybe they'll get out and drive an LMP2 car every once in a while. But, Lockie Hughes, full credit to TWG and Andretti Global. They actually stood on business and put their driver in a car, which, congratulations, guys. It was good. So good for Lockie. Good for them. I know they were definitely getting a lot of data. They had a pitot tube on the top of their car, which is a different place than you usually see it on an Indy car. So
only team that was doing that.
Yes,
crazy.
Explain to the fans out there, Dr. David Land, that may not understand what you just said, what exactly that is and what it does, because we do see it sometimes on the top of the car, sometimes more towards that front wing on usually test days.
Yeah, it's a little. In fact, I think most teams will run them on the nose cone of the car, even in the race. But it's a little metal. It's essentially like an airspeed monitor of some sort. I don't know exactly what it does, but it sends. It's a data measuring point on the race car, essentially. And so you can place them wherever you want.
You could definitely be confused to think of it as some type of antenna. Rossi ran one yesterday on the front nose, but basically, like, you'll see the little tube that sticks up and then goes forward. Yeah. Basically, air goes into that tube, and it's basically like a sensor to track different measurements. And basically what we're saying is, instead of running on the front nose cone, they had it sticking up. They got a big fat one out of the top camera pod. So it was different.
As Kara Lazier comes on in the background from the 96 highlights. All right.
I got a little distracted there.
Yeah. Elsewhere yesterday, we saw some other drivers. Christian Rasmussen and Ed Carpenter racing alongside Alexander Rossi were part of the test. Didn't seem to have the data that they wanted. Ed Carpenter did like a quick recap and said they had some problems. Kyle, I know that you noticed that basically that 21 car was torn all the way down to the ground almost at points. So kind of a bit of a waste of a test day, I would say, for Christian Rasmussen's side, although Alexander Rossi got a lot of data, I believe, got out in the afternoon and ran a lot of laps. James Rowe, who is somebody who's very interested in running IndyCar. James Rowe would be going into his third full-time season with the next team. Obviously, he's been associated with Andretti for the last couple of years, gets a test with Juncos Hollinger Racing. And David, he told us a very interesting tidbit during the media session at noon that this all came about because of a conversation that he had with one of the most respected names inside of IndyCar, that, of course, being Mike Hall, the managing director at Chip Ganassi Racing. He's one of the best type of strategists in the paddock. Obviously, him and Dixon have gone for a very long time together. What were your thoughts when we heard that out of James Rowe?
It's interesting, isn't it? I think you immediately start to think about the fact that Ganassi's expanding to 4 Indy Next cars next year. That was kind of the first place my mind went. The second place was that Mike Hullett kind of has a bit of a Midas touch with taking drivers like James Rowe under his wing and kind of showing them the ropes. I kind of think back to a conversation that we had with Mike at the end of Mid-Ohio when they won that race and the subject of Kiffin Simpson came up. And Mike kind of talked about the path that they set Kiffin on to succeed in IndyCar racing, and it was non-traditional. It wasn't the way that you see a lot of guys come up, just strictly open wheel sprint races. Like they put him in European Le Mans Series, Asian Le Mans Series, got him pit stop experience, IMSA too. And I think that, James is super smart, quite honestly, to go to Mike and ask for advice, because Mike is, in a lot of ways, a driver whisperer. And so I think he gave James some really great advice, obviously, to help him set up that test with Juncos. I'm interested to see what James ends up doing. He's kind of been a name that has been mentioned quite a bit behind the scenes about what he will do next year, whether that's IMSA, whether that's some sort of an IndyCar ride, whether that's Indy Next. We're not exactly sure where he's going to end up next year. But the fact that he got in an IndyCar before a lot of other of his contemporaries, his classmates, if you will, I think he's doing it the right way. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think James has a bit of a budget to possibly go to IndyCar next year. And unfortunately, there's just not enough rides. There's just not a lot of open seats, as we continue to talk about week in and week out on this show and throughout the paddock, the people that we talk to. I think James testing that car with Juncos, getting the feel of it, and possibly landing there in an Indy Next role, knowing that they are going to pull out two cars for this upcoming season of Indy Next, certainly makes sense. As we've already mentioned, Kyle Collette, another impressive run, another impressive test. He was top three on both sessions yesterday between the morning and the afternoon session. It looks like Kyle Collette is more than likely going to land that number 4 car because of a lot of different situations. But what I had learned is that there's a TV deal in place now for IndyCar to be broadcasted in Brazil every round of the championship. I don't know exactly what the TV channel was, but they had Formula One. They no longer have it. They are picking up all the IndyCar races. So obviously, if you're going to do that, you want to have a Brazilian driver to watch. Kyle Collette is certainly talented enough to run an IndyCar, and I would have high expectations for him in that 4 car next season alongside Santino Ferrucci. And then Dennis Hogger. Dennis Hogger in his second test last week, a couple crashes, got his bell rung, to say the least, in the second accident last week at Mid-Ohio, but comes back. Obviously, we know he's going to be full-time next year in the Dale Coyne Racing ride. It was a little bit of the 18 and the 51, which will become the 19 next season on that pit box yesterday. Michael Cannon was there as well, obviously helping Dennis Hogger, the rookie, as much as possible. But what had seemed to be almost for certain that we were going to see in the second car would have been Romain Grosjean. And yesterday, David, we kind of started talking and listening and hearing from some people that there are other drivers on the radar to land the second seat at Dale Coyne Racing with that partnership with Andretti for the 2026 season.
It's an attractive seat, isn't it? And I was about as surprised as you were to find out that Romain Grosjean was not necessarily the front runner anymore for that seat. I think it's no secret that Todd Alt really likes, who's the sponsor of both cars for next year, really likes Romain Grosjean. But there are some other interested parties who have a stake in that team who I think would like to see some different drivers get a shot. And I think there's some really interesting possibilities right now. I think it's a really strong seat, especially with that Andretti global partnership. So we'll see. I mean, Dale promised that we would have both of the drivers signed by Halloween. Mm-hmm. But I go back to a previous point I had, which is that if you're the last, and unfortunately a lot of times it ends up with Dale being the last one, but when you're the last person to have a seat open, especially when it's a fairly quality seat, you have all of a sudden, things start coming out of the woodwork and unexpected opportunities present themselves. And so I think Dale shouldn't necessarily hold hard and fast to that Halloween date if you've got a couple of different suitors kind of knocking on your door. I would also like to mention, while you mentioned Kyle Collette, I got the impression yesterday from some of the things that I heard that AJ Foyt Racing is super impressed with Kyle Collette. They really feel like they found a diamond in the rough, a driver that is taking to IndyCars extremely well. In fact, to the point where I don't necessarily think that much is going to change in terms of AJ Foyt Racing for next year, meaning I think they're still going to get the Penske support. So that would tell you how impressed I think everybody involved there is with Kyle Collette and kind of the feeling at that, not only at that team, but at Team Penske, who has had a partnership with AJ Foyt Racing, that they're confident in this kid. They're confident that he's going to keep this program strong. And you look at the partnership going forward. I mean, he's an HMD driver, right? Obviously, they just officially signed David Malukas. There's that pathway from Indy Next to IndyCar. You've got guys like Miles Rowe, who, of course, right now is driving for Able Motorsports, but guys like Max Garcia coming up through the ranks. You're going to need a place to put those guys at some point, and AJ Foyt Racing sure would seem like a great place to kind of be a farm team for a lot of these drivers coming up. So I think it's all very, very interesting right now. And, it's funny. We've kind of felt like the silly season was over. In fact, we might have even said that going into the Speedway on Monday morning. And I think we all left Monday evening. And we said, this ain't over whatsoever.
Yeah. So the first point with Kyle Collette, I mean, I think it is very important for IndyCar to have representation from the country of Brazil. I think that's a country that has so much rich tradition in IndyCar, as we know, and there is an importance of Mexico with Pato Award, and I think Brazil is a huge IndyCar market, and I think Kyle Collette, who certainly has the talent. I met Kyle in early 2024. David, I've been high on him, and I think he's going to get an opportunity. I think he's going to do very well and probably compete with Dennis Hogger next year for the Indianapolis 500 Rookie of the Year, as well as the IndyCar Series Rookie of the Year. And I think inside of that 4-car that obviously finished third on track at the Indianapolis 500, had a great run at a few other places. Obviously, David Malukas is really good, especially on the ovals. I think Kyle Collette is going to have a great season next year when this is finally officially written down on paper and announced for the 4-car. As far as Dennis Hogger and the coin car, Grosjean was the top, candidate to possibly be his teammate for next season. There has been some other names that have been thrown around. Obviously, there's always going to be the name Linus Lundqvist that comes up that kind of,
and he was there yesterday. He was on site.
He impressed us, I believe, in his one season with Ganassi. Last year, he was on reserve for McLaren at one point. His name has been brought up. There's been a few other names that have been brought up that could possibly land that coin card, David. And it is no longer, I feel, Romain Grosjean as the only option for that car. We have several other options that could possibly land there as well.
No, and I think that, the more you hear about Romain Grosjean, the more it kind of is starting to sound like maybe that relationship with Andretti isn't as strong as we thought it was, or maybe there's still some grudges hanging around there. So I don't know. Is he the kind of driver that they're going to want back in those engineering meetings? It's fascinating right now. Mm-hmm. And again, I think it's great for Dale to be in the position that he's in, because he's going to get the pick of the litter. I mean, you mentioned Linus. He was there yesterday. He was shaking all kinds of hands and kissing all kinds of babies, just as he's been doing all year long. I think there's a lot of people who would like to see Linus in an IndyCar seat. I think a lot of people think he's earned the right to get another shot. I mean, I think a lot of people feel that he's been dicked around more than most drivers, deserve to be, because he really hasn't done it. I mean, you look at what he did in 24, and while I don't think he set the world on fire, I think he was at least the equal of Marcus Armstrong, right? And Marcus got another opportunity, and I think Marcus really was impressive this year with Meyer Shank Racing, kind of under the radar, but I thought he was super, super solid throughout most of the year. And I have to imagine that Linus would have been the same had he gotten a regular opportunity. So I don't know. The problem is, or not the problem, but the idea is, I suppose, that with Todd Alt coming in a bigger capacity, You have
Who
two
wants
cars.
Grosjean? Who? Let's make it clear. Grosjean is a driver that he would like to work with.
Yes, he wants Grosjean, and he's funding both cars to the point where Dale can choose the driver. But that's at the end of the day, Dale owns the team, right? Todd doesn't own the team. Todd sponsors the team. I'm sure Todd's input is valued and taken into consideration, but ultimately Dale's going to make the call on who the driver is. And if Grosjean doesn't fit, then they won't pick him. I think that's pretty much the long and the short of it.
Any other names? I mean, obviously Connor Daly is a name that's been brought up, and there was an article today that mentioned that he has some budget, doesn't have enough for a full-time budget. Could that maybe land him back at Ryan Reinbold for an attempt at the Indianapolis 500? We learned that Ryan Hunter-Reay is no longer a part of the Ryan Reinbold test that's scheduled next Tuesday at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the Oval. Maybe some other names that you are hearing as well. A name that was brought up to me yesterday was Ryan Hunter-Reay, and I just have not gotten the sense that Ryan Hunter-Reay has any interest in running a full-time IndyCar season.
No. Ryan Hunter-Reay, I would say at this point, believe the smoke on the Arrow McLaren Indy 500 seat for Ryan Hunter-Reay. I'm beginning to get in the camp that I believe that that's where that's headed. Connor Daly, I think that's wishful thinking to think that he would go back to Dale Coyne Racing. As much as I think a lot of people would like to see that, I think he had a pretty decent relationship with Michael Cannon, if I remember correctly. I just don't see that either. I think Connor's most likely headed to that second Ryan Reinbold seat. So yeah, I would be interested. I'm going to be interested to see the announcement on Ryan Hunter-Reay whenever that's made, because I think that's another kind of Tony Kanaan decision. And I think, quite honestly, that's a step up if you look at it on paper objectively from where Ryan Hunter-Reay was last year. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Ryan Hunter-Reay was 20 laps away from winning the Indy 500 last year. So I think that, while it wouldn't kind of live up to the hype that Arrow McLaren was trying to, and more specifically Zach Brown was kind of trying to throw into the media of like a once-in-a-lifetime driver, huge opportunity, I think it could be a huge opportunity for them to get a result in the Indy 500, having Ryan Hunter-Reay in Papaya. So I think that could be a lot of fun.
And now let's get to what we were kind of all there for yesterday, really, which was the biggest needle mover and Mick Schumacher's test for me inside of that number 75 drop light car. I thought that he had a really good test, was smooth, seemed to be having a lot of fun, which was a term that continued to come up when we talked to him, obviously. And they, at Ray Hall, love being there. And there is obviously discussions on whether or not he is going to be in IndyCar full-time next year. And what he discussed was, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it full-time. So you can throw out that he's not going to do the ovals or he's not interested in running the Indianapolis 500, because he pretty much confirmed that to all of the media yesterday. I know people inside of Ray Hall were very happy with what they learned. I talked to some crew members last night about, hey, what was it like? How was he? And they all said he was an absolute joy. He was great with the media. We shared a little moment with them at the end of the day yesterday. So your thoughts first, David, on the test day that Mick Schumacher had, and secondly, the realistic opportunity of him coming to IndyCar next season. Where will he land, and how messy could it potentially get between Ray Hall and the DeFrancesco camp, depending on what contracts say and what contracts could or couldn't be broken?
Okay, let's talk Mick first. I think Mick appeared to be super comfortable, seemed to be enjoying himself quite a bit. I mean, when I asked him straight up, what's it going to take for you to be in an IndyCar next year? He literally said, have fun. Well, I think he had fun yesterday. And I think if you look at, especially the testing programs that other teams were on, where, depending on how much of a driver evaluation it was versus just a team test, right? I think James Rowe was pretty honest about it. Lockie was pretty honest about it. And we know the ECR guys were pretty honest about it. They were on a true, they weren't just on a testing program like shaking down a driver. They were on a car development program. And I think there were two drivers there who were more so on the, let's see how we work with this driver. Let's see if we can get these guys up to speed. And they were Kyle Collette and Mick Schumacher. I felt like a lot of what I saw of Mick Schumacher was a lot of running, a lot of trying to get him up to speed, and just getting him seat time in an IndyCar. And I thought he looked super comfortable. Like you said, Tony, I think he was pretty comfortable with the media right off the bat. I think obviously you always have a little bit of nerves if you're coming into a new situation, no matter what it is. But he handled everybody pretty well. And I think the media handled him pretty well. Obviously, when you've got a Formula One driver, there's a lot of storylines that you could go down the road of. And at least for now, we're not going down that road. Now, I think that Mick, to be in the seat next year, well, let me put it this way. I'm gonna go ahead and say this. I don't think you do that test. I don't think you put that test together. I don't think you have Mick's agent, Dirk Mueller, there. I don't think you have some of the higher-ups that we saw hanging around Mick's pit there if this wasn't deadly serious that this is going to happen. And I think if Mick had just gone out there and shit the bed, sure, this wasn't going to happen. But the fact that everybody's happy, the fact that Rahal's happy, the fact that if you look at the numbers on pretty much everybody's content yesterday that put anything out about Mick Schumacher, you would know from a sport perspective that Mick Schumacher is deserving to me of a seat in IndyCar because he will raise the profile of the sport. I think from Rahal's perspective, they have sponsors, new sponsors, that it's not a surprise or a shock that they put Drop Light on that car. Drop Light's a huge sponsor for them, a huge new sponsor, and they want to impress them. There were a hell of a lot of people from Drop Light there yesterday to see Mick Schumacher in that car. Again, you don't do that if you're not serious about the driver that you're putting in that car. I say all of that to say that I'm just going to say it, I firmly believe, and I don't know how this is going to happen, but I firmly believe we will see him in a Rahal Letterman Lanigan car next year. As you mentioned, Tony, that presents a lot of complications with Devlin DeFrancesco. I've heard two different stories now. So what's weird is I trust both sources I've heard these things from, so the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle. I've heard the idea that there is simply not a performance clause for Devlin DeFrancesco, not a single one. So if they were to break his contract, they would have to find a different clause, a different loophole, a different way to pull that off and get rid of Devlin. I've also heard the rumor that has been going around for forever, which is, again, I had kind of tried to dispel it because I went to some folks that I thought would be able to dispel it. I got that story. But this weekend, I got a different story, and that story is that there are performance clauses in Devlin DeFrancesco's contract. Specifically, I had heard something about not only the fact that there was a leader circle clause, but more specifically, there was a clause about how many points in the championship Devlin DeFrancesco needed to score, and that he did not reach that point threshold, and therefore he would break the contract in a way. Now, there's, again, file this one under rumor, but I've heard it enough times from enough different people that I'll throw it out there. It could be incorrect, could not be. Again, I trust the source. The idea here is that Devlin signed such a long-term deal that one of the clauses in the contract was if he didn't meet the contract, did not perform to the contract, whatever, however you want to put that, that he would essentially have to pay for the next season of whoever or whichever driver Rahal decided to put into that car. And so all of a sudden, here's Mick Schumacher, here's Rahal's new sponsor, here's a race day pit box, and every executive from every major partner that team has sitting in the pit box. I don't need to be an investigative journalist to tell you what's going to happen next year. Just going to put it that way.
So I'll say this because, Kyle drove us around the racetrack and we were kind of looking around and we ended up on the front straightaway. And I was like, oh, very interesting. Obviously, it's a fully wrapped car for a test, which you just certainly don't see all that often. And we've never seen the 75-car wrapped and
wrapped spare wings and everything.
Yeah. So I looked and I said, David, look, they brought the Mobile One pit box out. Like, they're obviously showing like, hey, we're legit. We want to be here. what I would say is a couple things, and this is just me simply putting this out there. You want to call it spitballing, whatever. Look, I think Mick Schumacher is obviously a huge name, is going to bring a lot more eyes. Is there an opportunity for maybe Devlin to go run another form of sports cars, maybe with some Rahal backing? That is certainly possible. Whether you look at it as, hey, my son's not going to be in that car, so I'm out, I'm bailing on the Devlin side, that's one thing. Now, if I am a businessman, as the Devlin camp is, and his father, Andy, why not look at this and say, okay, it hasn't worked. It didn't work. And first of all, this 30 car we're not talking about a car that's going to be contending for podiums, unfortunately, and maybe Mick can take it to that level. But as of right now, this 30 car, I think is one of the, I hate to say worse in the field, but it certainly has shown statistically that that's what it is. So if I am in the DeFrancesco camp, I'm thinking, okay, Dogecoin is obviously a big deal, investment, something that Andy DeFrancesco has been pushing. Do you maybe say, well, the best way to get more eyes on this, and my sponsor that I'm bringing, is to have Mick Schumacher in that car? Could you maybe say, hey, Devlin, we're going to give you 3 races. We're going to give you the Indy Road Course that you've been really good on. We're going to give you Toronto, which is your quote-unquote home track, and maybe one other race outside of the 500, because Takuma Sato's testing that 75 car next week for Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So he's not going anywhere. Sato is going to run with a Honda engine, probably with Rahal, until he doesn't want to run the Indianapolis 500 anymore. And everything that I've heard, and you're not going to test in October if you're not going to run in May. We learned this last year with Renus. We learned this last year, obviously, with Ryan Hunter-Ray. You're not going to spend a test, especially this week or next week's, when there's only 4 cars as compared to what it's been over the last couple of seasons, where it was kind of almost an all skate or 1 car from each team. Why not put your name on Mick Schumacher's car? And, if he brings some budget and there's a gap where you have to bring a little bit more budget for Mick, you're going to get more eyes on your sponsorship and the marketing promotion of Dogecoin than maybe what you would if Devlin was in there. And I like Devlin. I think we're all fans of Devlin. The 3 of us, great kid. But you know what? The results just simply haven't been there, whether it's the driver, whether it's the car. That's for the team to decide. But I think from a marketing standpoint, if that's also what it is as a businessman, why not have that Dogecoin name or one of your sponsors that you bring to the table on the side of a Mick Schumacher car? It was interesting. It was a 75 yesterday. I think we talked about that last week, because that really would have he's in a 30 car. That's definitely what's going to happen. But I'm with you, David. I don't see a avenue where Mick Schumacher isn't an IndyCar in some form next year. I like the idea of running a 4th car at the Indy GP, call it a 75 car, because look, you get that team ready for the Indianapolis 500. They had some struggles, obviously, on pit road, whether it was Sato's deal. They had some slower pit stops as well. So you kind of get them into the race mode, maybe even run Sato at Phoenix if possible. Who knows? But I think there is a chance that this could get ugly between the 2 sides. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully everybody plays nice and gets something out of it. And ultimately we see Mick Schumacher in a Rahal car for the 2026 season. I don't think you bring him out, test him, bring a sponsor out, and let him get away to another team. Also, there's not a lot of seats that are open. So if there's anything you want to react to that, please feel free to do so. But I do want to get to Kyle, who had an incredible update yesterday as we were talking and going around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We saw our Lord and Savior Clifford, the S10 with the hood up.
It's the biggest news story of the day.
Inside of Oval Turn 4. And I know you got some other information on that as well. So,
yeah. We had some big
Clifford
information
from yesterday's test.
Yeah, we saw Clifford with the hood up on the car. I wish I would have been ready for this segment. Would have shown you, but Clifford, and that actually took. I mean, people love Clifford. That actually took off to 34,000 views on Twitter. So I felt very bad because I was spreading a little bit of false information because we received a comment that said that's just how she parks. The battery drains from the light on top of it, so they have the hood open so you can switch it back on quickly. And because it's wasn't a race and it was a test, they wouldn't. Basically, in short, they wouldn't leave the hood up at a race, but because it was a test, they just had her sitting out there with the just trying not to drain the battery. So we were all worried about Clifford. It was, that was huge news. We were thinking maybe he needed surgery. Not the case.
I was worried you'd have to go down to the infield care center. We were going to have to get the report from Dr. Henry Bach and Jerry Punch down there.
Very sad. It's very sad. Well, I was definitely I'm hey, sorry, I was spreading false information on the web. That was me. But Clifford's all right.
Well, I told our good friend Jason Van Sickle at the museum, whenever it is done, whenever Clifford has retired, just call us up.
That's going to be a long time though. Like the thing about that car that everybody doesn't realize is it's been run to do laps on the speedway. That thing has what 10,000, 16,000 miles, in that realm. Not a lot.
In May, I'd gotten May. Somebody told me 10,800. So maybe you add a couple
crazy.
hundred.
It's a brand new truck.
Yeah.
So there's some value to that. But when they retire it or they move on, we're just going to push it right in the museum. And that's where it's going to live. All right, real quick, we got the thermal coin.
Oh, God.
Oh, here we go.
Schumacher run full-time next year in IndyCar. Another yes. I think it's
thermal coin never lies. I do have one question relating to silly season. It's kind of fun because I can put you guys under the gun because, hey, I just put the pressure on you guys. We did see our good pal, Jacob Abel, down there in the pits tomorrow. I mean, we kind of started the silly season talking about him possibly being in the 4-car. And as the seats start to close, it just seems less and less likely that Jacob's going to have a ride. But I mean, that's something we always talk about. The Able Motorsports team have a chassis. So they could possibly do a 500 ride, something. What do you guys think is the 2025 or 2026 for Jacob Abel?
Let me start on this, David, because I know you'll have a little bit more. I think we will see bumping for the Indianapolis 500 next year. Michael Kaltenmark, who is the head of marketing at IMS, mentioned yesterday morning on Channel 8 here locally that they are ahead of ticket sales from where they were last year. So we could have another blackout lifted, which I think is the right thing to do. Obviously, you want the biggest rating you can for Fox, who is now part owners of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and IndyCar, unlike they were back in May. So if you want to lay down another huge number, you obviously lift that blackout. As far as Jacob Abel goes, as mentioned, seats are running out. They do have, we talk about the 5 things you have to run the Indianapolis 500, and it's an engine, it's a chassis, it's a driver, it's the team and the funding to do it. I think Jacob right now would tell you that they have multiple of those 5 things, maybe not all of them to put it together. I think right now we're projected, in my guess, would have Jacob Abel attempting the Indianapolis 500. Now, whether that's with Honda or Chevy, that's still to be determined. But outside of that, I'm not sure where we see Jacob Abel. Maybe some sports car type stuff. But what was your takeaway in seeing Jacob Abel and the possible landing spots for maybe his second attempt at the Indianapolis 500 in 2026?
Well, he didn't take it too well when I told him to just buy Prema, so we'll take that one off the board. I think I would agree with you, Tony. I think the most realistic opportunity for him right now is run the Indy 500, get that monkey off your back. I think you just run it back if you're Able Motorsports. I think the key, at least based on recent history right now in the Indy 500, is you need a bow tie in your car to be safely in the field. And the last time Able Motorsports did that with R.C. Anderson, they had a Chevy, they got in the field. So I think if you could go to Chevrolet and work some sort of a deal, I don't know exactly what that would look like. I think you could put together some sort of an Able Motorsport program for the 500. Their crew's clearly capable. They've proven themselves capable in the past. I know John Brunner's a great team manager. He was able to get that team up to snuff pretty quickly, and so I think that would probably be the most likely scenario for Jacob next year. I guess the question that I would have, and this is me totally throwing something against the wall here, is there any benefit to Jacob going back to lights and trying to take that championship?
It's a good question, and you rarely see it, right? You rarely see that happen. And you look at what happened last year. I don't believe Jacob Abel won an oval in the Indy Next Series. I could be wrong on that, but we did see Miles Rowe in an Abel car win twice last year on an oval. There are drivers that run a third year in Next, and sometimes, obviously we'll see that with Miles Rowe. I feel like for Jacob Abel, there's too much to lose, so to speak, right? If you go down and you finish 5th or 6th in the championship in Indy Next, it doesn't do anything for your name or your brand, regardless of who's paying for that. I think personally, if I'm Jacob Abel, and I want to run IndyCar and the Indianapolis 500, I really get serious about my approach. I maybe hire some people to this team that have the experience, and I go and I work on my road and my street course, whether it's some form of level of IMSA, whether it's something like the 8-hour race this weekend that we're going to talk about. But I think right now for Jacob Abel, you focus on running next year's Indianapolis 500 and kind of showing up with your own equipment, as you mentioned, your own engine lease, your own sponsorship, whether that's Abel Construction or you can bring in maybe Miller Lite or Miller High Life like we saw last year. But I think right now we're at a point where Jacob Abel's, I think, only shot to be an IndyCar on any level is the Indianapolis 500. I don't know if you want to risk going back to Indy Next and we see what Miles Rowe did last year and you finish 4th or 5th in the championship, but it's like, okay, that reality is set in. Unless he goes out and Dennis Hoggers it and just has an incredible year, I don't think it's quite worth your time. Also today, we finally had gotten the news that Rinus VeeKay officially signing with Juncos Hollinger Racing. Some interesting verbiage on this post, as well as an interesting verbiage on an Arrow McLaren post that we are going to talk about as well. Saw Rinus at the track yesterday, told me he's very happy with the future. Obviously, there is some history between him and Juncos Hollinger Racing. He leaves the 18 car, in which he had several top 10 runs, leaves Michael Cannon. There wasn't anything officially mentioned today, I don't believe, unless I missed it, that Rinus is in that car for more than 1 year, because as we talked about on the show last week, there's just so many free agents that are going to be available coming up at the end of the 2026 season. But the verbiage from Juncos was, we are building for the future, and our lead driver is going to be Rinus VeeKay. Obviously, Rinus, the three of us will agree, we like him a great deal. He has a lot of talent. Smart of him to sign a 1-year deal, knowing that there's a lot of free agency spree coming up at the end of 2026. But some interesting wordage when we got the official announcement earlier today at 10 a.m. Your thoughts, David, of officially Rinus landing at Juncos, and Kyle will bring up his awesome graphic here with an update on where we stand for the silly season.
Yeah, well done, Kyle. Well done, Kyle. That's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think didn't we know this in Nashville, and then there were rumors and speculation that were incorrect about where he was going, and we all got confused. But yeah, I think it's interesting with Rinus at Juncos. I think I agree with everybody who has said that it is a sidestep from Coyne. At the best, it's a sidestep from Coyne, because I think Coyne's going to take a step up next year, and I think it's also fair to say that Coyne wanted Rinus back. They didn't want to lose him, but Rinus wanted a 1-year contract because of what we're seeing right here, where there are some heavy hitting seats potentially going to be on the market for a driver next year. So you're going to want to be in that driver market at the end of 2026. So I think the lead driver verbiage is very interesting. Juncos, it seems, doesn't necessarily want to directly confirm what we know based on this board right here, which is that Stingray Robb has a contract through 2026. I've confirmed that with them. Mm-hmm. There's a contract. And so I guess the verbiage would seem to suggest that they're expecting Stingray Robb to be the second driver there. But I think it's odd that they're not committing to that right now. I don't know why you wouldn't commit to it unless you're trying to, join the long list of people trying to get sued in IndyCar racing. But I think that I would be surprised to not see Stingray Robb in that seat next year in the second Juncos Hollinger Racing car. Will Stingray do significantly better than Connor? I think that's kind of the question hanging over everybody's head. I think Rinus is probably happy from the perspective of the Indy 500. I don't think he's going to have any problem qualifying.
I think he's happy he's going to get paid a living wage, too. Sorry to cut you off, but I think there is something to be said that, look, obviously Stingray Robb is bringing a bunch of money. We all know that, and is funding that second seat. And Rinus, who at some points in his career, especially over the last couple of seasons, maybe hasn't made up to snuff that you would think an IndyCar driver deserves to make. So somebody mentioned in the chat maybe an attitude issue. Trust me, nobody in the paddock would ever have a bad word to say about Rinus. In fact, he was laughing, joking, and talking to people inside of the Dale Coyne pit during yesterday's test. Rinus is an absolute joy. He was on the show and was so much fun. So
he was even over at the Ed Carpenter pit, which is, you wouldn't expect that
crazy.
With how that was how they split, right? Like he was with his old team that allegedly they did not split on good terms. So if that says anything about an attitude issue, no way.
Yeah, I don't think anybody that's spent more than 2 minutes with Rinus would say an attitude issue. Do I believe that he should be in a top ride? Absolutely. Just unfortunately right now there isn't top rides that are open. Now at the end of 2026, when a lot of rides open up, you would hope that Rinus is in line for something on a bigger team. We shall see, but we got
okay. Hang on.
Go ahead.
Because Juncos, the other part of the verbiage in their release was that they're building towards the future. How in the hell are you building toward the future with a 1-year deal?
With both drivers, you have 1 year on both drivers right now.
Yeah.
Well,
so it's a big signing. It's a great driver, but he's literally signing so he can sign with someone else next year.
Mm-hmm. Any interest or anything to look into the fact that he is moving from a Honda back to a Chevy, and does that say anything about where he might possibly land in the 2027 season?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think for a driver like Rinus, you just take whatever you feel is the best available opportunity for where your career is at that time. And obviously, part of what has been reported, which I believe is correct, is that, he wanted to get paid. Mm-hmm. Well, he could get paid at Juncos, right? And it didn't really matter what lump is in the back of the car or what stickers on the side of it. That's irrelevant. What's relevant is what's at the end of 2026, and I guarantee you he'll drive for Penske, he'll drive for Ganassi, he'll drive for whoever. It doesn't matter what engine's on the car as long as it's finally a top-tier ride that he can finally perform in, because Rinus, for all of the talent, for all the good things, for all the positivity we have about Rinus, he has never sat in a championship contending car. Arguably, he's never been in a car that could win the Indianapolis 500. Probably the closest he ever got was his second 500 in 2021, right? So Rinus is the one who's building for the future, I would say, with this move, not Juncos.
Speaking of moves, tomorrow there will be a test down at Sebring involving Arrow McLaren Racing and Enzo Fittipaldi. We had heard some rumors and some rumblings of maybe some kind of connection between HMD and McLaren, specifically on the Indy Next side. We haven't really heard too much out of HMD on whether or not the drivers that will be in the car next year for that team. They obviously have a bit of a partnership with the Q6 side of things. I was told that tomorrow is an evaluation day, and HMD does have interest in running Enzo Fittipaldi in Indy next season, and they'll kind of know tomorrow when this test concludes where that is. But I don't know if you have the graphic or the tweet and the Instagram post, but if you saw it earlier today, Arrow McLaren and IndyCar reported that this was happening. And at the bottom, they wanted to once again reiterate the fact that they are set next year on Christian Longard, obvious, Pato Award, obvious, and Nolan Siegel, who has had his ups and downs in his year and a half plus with McLaren. So I thought that was very interesting to reiterate to everybody that, no, we are running it back when it comes to our 3-car lineup for next year. And on that, David, would love to hear your thoughts on some of the news that we have heard about Alex Palou and the McLaren situation. They obviously have returned to town. We saw Palou on Sunday bang the anvil at the Colts game. Some very interesting things that we've read that have came out of the lawsuits and the back and forth between Zach Brown and Alex Palou. A lot of strays being tossed at a lot of different people. Names have been brought up. We're not legal experts here on the show, but first, your thoughts on Enzo's test tomorrow, the verbiage of the post when things go down tomorrow in Sebring.
Well, some of us would claim we're not experts on anything, but I would say the verbiage on the McLaren post is quite interesting because there's multiple layers to it. You obviously have the lawsuit going on right now between McLaren and Alex Palou taking place in England. Obviously, Alex was able to make it back to the States here in the last couple of days, which is good. He actually had to miss Petit Le Mans. He was originally scheduled to drive the number 93 Acura, and because of his court ordered appearances, Tristan Vautier had to take over that ride at Petit. But yes, the verbiage in that post is very interesting, because you think back to now almost 2 years ago with all of the driver signings and firings and seat swaps and all this nonsense that was going on with McLaren in 2024. So there's that layer where, the internet will freak out. Oh my God, is Enzo Fittipaldi replacing Nolan Siegel? And then you also have to cover your ass in court, because currently Alex Palou is trying to prove in court that you sign drivers willy-nilly and try to and tell drivers one thing and have other drivers signed. You think about the court documents right now that are coming out that Palou's lawyers are trying to prove that McLaren knowingly and willingly signed Oscar Piastri after signing Alex Palou to the seat. You have all this stuff coming out about, Pato Award and what he felt he was promised, or maybe not, promises weren't followed through on. It's all very messy, right? Mm-hmm. And as we know, in a court battle, it's going to get very, very messy. And this one's getting messy. And so I don't blame Arrow McLaren whatsoever for coming out and being like, okay, he's testing the car, but he's not driving. We like Pato, we like Christian, we like Nolan. And look, they've got a very good PR team over there. They know what people are saying online, and they know damn well that everybody is starting to point the finger at Nolan Siegel and saying, you need to start performing. So naturally, if the internet is left unchecked, everyone's going to automatically assume any driver that's not Nolan, Christian, or Pato getting in a Arrow McLaren car is suddenly somebody that they're evaluating to drive one of the three cars for next year. And that's not the case. It is an extra test day with a possible Indy Next development driver. That's not something that you're looking towards the future with. That's to get a test day, right? So it's all very messy. It's all very interesting. And I think the big thing with the court stuff for me is I'm kind of waiting for that all to kind of shake out, so that we have the final judgment. We have all of the facts that have been presented during discovery, and then we can kind of sink our teeth into it. Because as things keep coming out about the court, what is being discovered in court, what is being presented as evidence in court, seems to change every day, right? We get new evidence, we get new things coming up. So, don't think just because we're not speaking specifics about the court findings that we're not paying attention to that, or that we're ignoring it. It's mainly, at least on my end, that I just want to make sure we get everything right and talk about it with the complete picture, due to the complexity of what's going on right now. And thank God, by the way, I'm not a NASCAR person, because good Lord, that's about to hit the fan big time.
And then back to that point, there was a lot. Gavin Ward has been mentioned in a lot of these articles. Marcus Ericsson took some strays. So if you haven't read up on it, there's some very interesting articles of what's going on with that. And I believe, obviously, Alex Palou's back in the States, so we may be on a little bit of a hold or a recess, so to speak, over the next couple of weeks. Stymie mentioned is TK's future at McLaren tied to Nolan on this channel. If you want to go back and check out my conversation, my sit down, I thought TK was very candid. I thought TK was very open and talked about his belief in the abilities of Nolan Siegel, and that Nolan is here to stay. So if you want to go check out that conversation, I'm not going to say they're exactly tied to each other, because I think obviously TK will probably be at McLaren a lot longer than Nolan Siegel will. But there may, and maybe Nolan comes out and he finally gets it. We'll see. Probably not the most likely, but there's going to be a time where maybe I'd say, look, hey, we thought that this was going to work out. It certainly didn't. It's unfortunate. Let's move over and get somebody else in this car. Whether that comes as soon as Detroit next year or it comes at the end of the 2026 season, that is still yet to be determined. All right, we have talked plenty of IndyCar on the show. Again, thanks everybody for being here. I did indeed. David delivered on my birthday gift. Thank you very much. We've got some Buc-ee's gummy bears. Very, very nice. You boys, road trip down to Georgia. Had a great time. Go ahead and let us know what happened down at Petit Le Mans, how your trip was, maybe some inside baseball, some things that you guys did. And I know, David, you've got some cool things coming up over the next couple of days at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway with the upcoming 8-hour race.
Yeah, Kyle, lead us off. I like. We haven't heard Kyle talk for like 15 minutes, so I want Kyle to talk about Petit.
Well, Petit was very fun. David, of course, as usual, did a lot of the pounding of the ground in the paddock and doing all the things, and I did a lot of the photography.
Was the Riz back?
Creativity stuff. Oh yeah, IMSA Riz was at a full front.
Yeah, it was full throttle.
Am I the C blocker of the Riz? Is it me? Is it?
Yeah, it's all you.
It was unbelievable. I mean, let me tell you something about IMSA. There was a little Riz in Detroit. I'll tell you this. There were people getting married on the grid. I mean, you want to talk about Petit, man.
Yeah.
Petit's a hell of a thing.
It all started with, it'd be nice if IndyCar or, other series would do this, but we started on Thursday with a State of the Sport address from John Doonan, where basically you get a lot of the media, team owners. I saw Mike Shank there, a lot of, people in
every representative from every OEM was in
every there. OEM, and it was a slideshow where John was very transparent. Of course, a lot of it was a lot of the basics of just
wow, hey, look how great everything is.
Wow, look how perfect and great everything is. Not a lot of pointing at any issues or problems, right, or addressing any issues, but it's a lot of look, I have a clicker and look at all these great things. Which, to be fair, IMSA is doing a lot of great things, but just to see it and have the president kind of talk about their plans and the
here's where we're going. Here's where we are. Here's where we're going. Here's what we're doing right. I mean, I wish they would say what they're doing wrong, but I suppose that's our job, right?
Yeah, that's our job, and to even throw an announcement in there as well to announce that they're partnered with Michelin for the next 10 years, which is insane. Which by the way. Do we know how many years we have a Firestone contract?
Oh God!
Contract?
I don't want to talk about contracts anymore.
I'm not gonna say anything else on that. I don't want any of you to say anything on that. But hey, we had a Michelin announcement for 10 years, and it got me thinking: do we even know how long these contracts are in IndyCar? Or are we just sitting here going, "Oh yeah, it's for life"?
Hang on a second. They announced
is it Graham Rahal on my sheet.
Damn it! I remember this. I remember this information because I was there.
Yeah.
At Nashville, not this year, but last year, they announced an extension with Firestone. I don't remember exactly how long it was. I think it might have been 5 years. Was it 5 years?
2030. I think it was 2030, if not mistaken, because it was in downtown Nashville. That was right before you and I took the little mini two-seater ride around Nashville. I want to say it was through 2030 that Firestone,
which would be 5 years.
Yeah, will. Yeah. So that's where we are with that.
Okay, so that's good. Okay, we're glad Firestone sticking around. We'll have to sweat that one out in 2030, but that's a long time. I'm gonna sleep a few times between then. Okay, sorry, Kyle.
All right, and then they basically went through, had an announcement. That was cool, and then just flash forward to Saturday, sold out Road Atlanta, insane. We love. David and I have been kind of very loud about that race to all of our friends, to everyone we meet, to everyone who watches this show. I think we've brought up Petit a lot. We just bring up Petit a lot because it's such a great event. And I'm not going to lie, just as a joke, we want you all to show up to Petit, but we're all just sitting here going, man, we really did a terrible job of gatekeeping Petit because there are so many people here. Oh my gosh. Because at the end of the day, we love it. It's great. But man, so many people. It's in that place, there's not a lot of parking. It was not built to have that many people. So, now you have to show up at 6, 7, 8. It's you're getting close to almost Indy 500 territory where you want to show up at 5 a.m. and really get there and to experience it. I mean, it's so cool. I mean, you got the bagpipes, the drums on the grid full on the track and the pit lane, just a mess of people, the drivers choosing their walkout songs for driver intros, the whole thing. That event just feels like a
Which
big
team
time
had
event.
the John Cena theme? I want to give them.
It was Paul Miller.
It was Paul Miller. Yeah, okay, that tracks. That tracks.
The Chettle. What are some of the?
Somebody came out to the chain. Who came out to the chain?
That was the pole sitter.
Okay, so that was the 60. 60 came out to the chain.
60 accurate. All right. The Chetlar team had one of the it sounded like it was from like an Olive Garden commercial, which was hilarious. That team. That's the team with I believe Molina or Fuoco, one of the two.
Both of them. I believe both of them. Yeah. Oh no, sorry. It had
and of course it's the Chetlar team, and they're a Ferrari. Like it's so Italian, very on point. There were a few. I think there was one team. I think Van Tour's car, which would be the 7, came out to a Little Einstein's remix that then turned. It was like a trap remix, which was hilarious. Both of the Taylor Brothers songs didn't play. I noticed that both Wayne Taylor cars did not have a song, and I refuse to believe it was because they didn't pick one. I want to believe they censored them, which is funny. I want to know the story on that.
I want to believe it was a reflection of their season where their cars just
right.
Didn't
Sure.
work
Yeah.
We're not going to have an entrance theme because you're not going to notice we were there the entire race.
Yeah. And then, the race, just my race in general, like my experience, I left the media center at 1:30 and came back at 9:00, which is an hour before the finish. So I spent my entire day walking the entire track through the hills of Atlanta, which was awesome. The race was awesome. The Aston Martin finished on the podium, almost won the damn thing, which would have been cool. The Lamborghini in its final race, heartbreaking ending to a heartbreaking program, just 2 or 3 laps short on fuel, or else they would have really had a shot to win and for sure have had a podium. But it was a 31 Cadillac, just like at Indy. They got it done. It was more of a fuel race than that crazy kind of
virtual energy.
Oh, well, whatever. Shut up. I've had enough IMSA Riz to call it virtual energy, right? But yeah, I mean, it wasn't like crazy bonkers stupid petite. It was, we were fuel saving, but we had some cars up there doing some things. We had, you want to one of the moments that where motorsports is really a drama that just you can't write this stuff. It's the 1-2 in GT was Paul Miller versus Corvette, which is where the season started, right? That was interesting, and LMP2 was batshit insane and sucked as usual. So do with that what you will.
But the dinosaur car, the skeleton dinosaur car,
it won.
No, it didn't. TDS won. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it did. That's what I'm saying. That's the beauty of LMP2. It was crazy, but it was also the dumbest thing we've ever seen. Mix the two, do with that what
they're
you will.
stages, they're guaranteed yellows. That's what the P2 field is. I thought that well, first of all, I just got to talk about the parking at Petite. We got to figure that out. I don't know how you figure that out.
There's nothing you could do.
Well, you're probably going to have to build another parking lot. You're probably going to have to take some. I'm going to say something that I completely usually disagree with. Is you're probably going to have to take some of them trees down and build a parking lot. I know.
Right? I mean, honestly, so there was one thought I had, and then outside of this, I don't think there's anything you can do. I had one thought that they could open up the inside of turn 5 for spectators, maybe build a bridge. That's probably the next investment that they should take. That doesn't help the parking, but it definitely would alleviate some of the more space for spectators and people to go to expand this thing. But honestly, my thought process was the unfortunate point of hey, I mean, maybe you just have to, if demand is that high, maybe you raise ticket prices a little bit, and
I didn't feel like there were too many people inside of the facility though. I've been to Le Mans, the actual 24 hours of Le Mans. I know that's a joke on this channel that I went to Europe. I went to Europe. But Le Mans feels, especially when it's sold out, which the two I've been to have been sold out, feel stupid crowded where you can barely move, Indy 500 level.
Yeah.
I don't feel like Road Atlanta's that yet.
Yeah. I definitely feel that because in 10A 10B, there's definitely a lot more space for people to go. There were definitely more space on some of the hills, but I mean, the inside of 6 and 7 were probably at capacity, and there's I don't know, but there's definitely we reached capacity with parking where we could park cars and have people go. Honestly,
Yeah.
like that's
and the traffic's not going to get any better.
No.
That's going to be, and it's okay. I don't think that, again, I think everybody, especially like it, listen, we in the media, we're a bunch of cynical bunch of dicks, right? But like, I heard everybody who complained about the traffic, especially people who came in late for the most part, were like, it sucks that I was late getting in here because of the traffic, but you know what? It's a good problem to have. It means people care. We're happy about that, right? I think
there are times
there,
when I make the joke when we start talking about Petit that we did a bad job of gatekeeping Petit. I mean, it's genuinely, when we went there, again, it was the year after COVID in 2021, and it was freezing cold in November. We were in 10A, 10B almost by ourselves. Like, at the end of the DPI era of IMSA, you could just go wherever you wanted. There were not a lot of people. It was freezing cold. To see where it's come in just 3 to 4 years now, like, it's insane. It's absolutely mind blowing, and it's honestly, it's so cool. It's a good problem to have that everybody is just getting on board sports car racing right now in America. It's so cool to see.
Biggest thing I could say about Petit and the biggest positive I can give is that I think for all, there was a lot of complaints in sports car racing this year, specifically about fairness of driving, driving standards, and balance of performance. And I think in terms of the balance, just in general, of like the competition level of the series and the product that they put on the racetrack at Petit, I felt like it was the best it's been in a very long time globally, sports car racing. Like the BOP, every single manufacturer, every single one in GTP had a legitimate shot at one point to win that race. Every single one of them had pace. And ultimately, I felt like the best car won, which was the 31. And the second best car finished second. And the third best car finished third, which was the 6 Porsche. You had the pole sitter finish fourth, the 60. And you had, the Lamborghini finished fourth. And then the pole sitter's fifth, right? So like 5 different manufacturers in the top 5. That's exactly what you're looking for in a BOP formula. But it didn't feel forced or contrived. It didn't feel like it was like fake. It felt like the correct result was made. And I think if you look at that GT battle between Paul Miller and Corvette, those two teams specifically are why a lot of the bad driving standards were happening throughout the year. The gigantic crashes that we saw were those two teams a lot of the time. And so the fact that those two teams, appropriately were battling for the win in GT Pro, and neither of them ran into each other more than necessary. Neither of them caused a big crash. Neither of them ran each other off the road. I felt like, again, it's exactly what we were looking for. So when we talk about like the golden era of sports car racing, and we talk about this era being so exciting, and yes, there are some blemishes now, Porsche leaving the World Endurance Championship and whatnot, but you have a lot of manufacturers coming in. Still, you have Porsche staying here in the States. So I think you're still going to have a very solid grid at the top class, which is, of course, what brings, I think, most of the people in is a solid, strong top class. And the fact that the racing product is now, we've figured out the BOP. If Daytona's a banger, man, like the sky's the limit. And you've also figured out the driving standards where you don't have a lot of stupidity, a lot of stupid yellows. Like, yes, we had dumb things happening at Petit, but it was in the first hour when the whole GT field decided to crash going into turn 5, which I thought was amusing. But I think generally speaking, I'm super positive about IMSA going forward. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But I think, as a lot of the people are mentioning in the chat, and I think the elephant in the room with them right now, and it's really the only elephant in the room, is the fact that the first 3 hours of the race were on NBC. That's great. That's awesome. You got a better TV package than NASCAR, which owns your series, by the way. But then the rest of the race, the next 7 hours, we're stuck on Peacock. And I just don't think that's the best way to grow. And I know that IMSA is trying so hard internally to get the message out, to get people to be able to watch the races or be able to easily watch the races. But that's really the thing that's holding them back right now, is that you can't tune in and watch.
It was so crazy when IMSA got, the week before Petit, a slot on Big NBC for the championship preview episode, which is just like a show, like a video put together by IMSA, not a showing of a race, nothing, just a video basically, going through the season and the point situation heading to the final race. They got that on Big NBC, and NASCAR got USA Network. Granted, bigger time, shorter time slot, but still, hilarious. But yeah, I think we got to try. They got to try make it happen to get the last hour, 2 hours on NBC,
or even USA Network. Get it on TV.
I mean, I've heard that they're going to bring back NBCSN, but it's going to be one of those special deals where not everybody's going to get it. But that is a thing that's coming back apparently. So I guess that could be an option to get back on television, but I'm not 100% sure how good that would be.
With that being said, we did see Denny Hamlin win his 60th career NASCAR race over the weekend in Vegas as those playoffs continue to get deeper and deeper into the season. We saw that NHRA had a better audience and a better rating with over 1 million watching than what we saw with NASCAR. So kudos to the NHRA. Obviously, a huge lead up with Fox and the NFL. David, first and foremost, your thoughts on that, and then secondly, we live in this world where IndyCar thinks it's best to not go up against the NFL come past Labor Day. Is that maybe a sign to say, hey, if it worked out perfectly, if the Colts played at 1 p.m. on Fox and you could run an IndyCar race at 4:30 on Fox, is there something to be said of the potential of maybe extending the season, or maybe is that a landing spot for something maybe overseas or some kind of international type of racing?
You would have to work with the NFL. And we found out in Nashville that was specifically why that race is no longer on the street course, and more specifically now it's not the finale, right? So now Fox probably has a little bit more pull with the NFL than IndyCar themselves do. So I suppose there's some way you could finagle that to work, but it probably wouldn't work out every year that you'd have the right matchup or right game to lead into your broadcast. And with the NHRA, yes, they got 1.7 million viewers on television, but how many was it? 7 million people that were tuned into whatever NFL game it was that watched for 5 minutes the NHRA and then turned the TV off, and that just spiked the rating like crazy, right? Like TV ratings can be deceptive in those sort of ways. So yes, it's good for the NHRA on a 1 week basis to say, hey, we not only beat everybody, we beat NASCAR, right? And we had a great lead in, and that's great. I don't want to take too much away from the NHRA, but how many of those people are you going to retain, right? So I think that's the other thing too, when you look at, and ironically, we're talking about Nashville again.
Yeah.
But Nashville is going to be the lead-in to, or have a lead-in from the World Cup next year.
Yep.
The rating might look amazing, but if you don't do the effort, you don't put in the effort during the World Cup broadcast to try to tell some of those stories and get people invested to keep the TV on during the race, then even if you have a huge spike in the TV number, let's say it's 2.5 million people that into Nashville in prime time next year, or that's what the number says. And then the year afterwards, you don't have a World Cup, you run in prime time, and then all of a sudden, 800,000 people. And the sponsors go, what in the hell is going on? Right? That's the thing when you fix or you try to finagle the TV rate getting a big lead, you're kind of setting false positive, right? So I think we need to temper expectations on those sort of things, because they're not always going to work out. You have to work with one of the, next to the freaking CIA. They're not going to tell you anything, the NFL, right? So you're going to have to work with the NFL to get your schedules lined up so that you can run after a 1 o'clock game and hope that it runs on time, right? And then you're going to have to explain to the sponsors when that doesn't happen and the same race takes place on the same date the next year and it's 600,000 people versus 2.5 million. You have to explain to them where all those people went and why you didn't retain them. So it's a double-edged sword. That's all I would say about that.
I think your 100,000 subscriber plaque was cutting into your internet a bit there. We had a little Robo David, a little Daft Punk David.
Daft Punk David.
But we're at the end of the show. I wanted to say this because I thought it was interesting, and I didn't expect it to kind of explode and blow up like it did. But for those that are college football fans, IU beats Oregon last week, which was huge and the biggest win probably in franchise history or in school history for IU. And the Oregon Duck was acting up. And normally I think the Oregon Duck is pretty funny, pretty lively, but he took a shot of their Indianapolis 500. Okay, so I put it out there, and it kind of just exploded as far as retweets and people looking at it. So I know somebody mentioned that in the chat because we were talking about Firehawk compared to the Oregon Ducks. So if the lesson is learned here, you don't mess with the Indianapolis 500. That's karma. It was karma instantly served, and a 30-20 win for IU at Eugene, knocking off the Oregon Ducks.
I have like 3 things to say here. Number 1, the Oregon Ducks sucks. 0 championships. That's what the O in Oregon stands for. As an Ohio State fan, beat them in the playoffs, beat them in a natty once. Terrible team, terrible organization. I hate how many times they change their uniforms. They suck. Boo Oregon. Number 2, you're right. Don't go after the Indy 500. There were a lot of fans that I thought poked fun at it and had like the correct take to kind of, go along with it and kind of boo Oregon. But there were a lot of IndyCar fans on the flip side that were actually mad. They were actually mad, and it was not a good look. All right. So just my, I guess, advice, it is a man dressed in a duck uniform holding a sign. All right. At the end of the day, it's not that deep.
IndyCar fans get pissed off of anything.
That's my advice. Like, as an IndyCar fans, we're not beating any allegations for being the most insecure, insufferable fan base by getting mad at a guy in a duck costume holding a sign.
A college kid.
Calm down. Yeah, a college kid in a duck costume.
Week 1, and his hat fell off, or his helmet fell off. Something I wanted to mention.
Down.
Your shirt reminded me of this. I'm not sure if it's been announced, and I'm not sure if it's really a big deal, but we did notice this. It was on the IndyCar media site. You'll see a slight change in the NTT logo. Yeah, so you'll see a slight change in the NTT IndyCar logo for 2026. So if you're Andretti and you want to go to TWG, hell, you got to get new shirts anyway with the new logo on it. Why not make that announcement? You okay, Robo David? You playing DJ over there? You good?
It's huge news. It's unbelievable. It's just what an incredible. I mean, it's earth-shattering for the sport that the series logo changed.
Well, somebody was going to say it on here, so we figured we would
earth-shattering
hop onto it. All right, before we go, David, you've got some cool things coming up surrounding what looks to be a rainy 8-hour race coming up on Saturday from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Yeah, I'm doing some cool stuff with McLaren and their road car program. I'm going to get a hot lap in one of their cars. I don't know exactly which car. I think it's a McLaren challenge car or something like that. It'll be cool. I was like, hey, can you get a GoPro on this thing? And they're like, yeah, sure. So that'll be interesting. And then obviously the 8-hour, we got Will Power and a couple of other interesting. I think Brody Kostecki's running it. No, not Kostecki.
Connor Daly.
Chaz
Mostert. Yeah, Chaz Mostert's running it with the 75 Express team. It should be fun. I mean, it's one of the only, in fact, I think it's the only race at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway that goes into the dark. So, hey, that'll be fun. You can also watch it for free on YouTube. Just saying, if you're not in Indianapolis, it's a pretty easy thing to put on. So, the 8-hour, it's always kind of a fun race because for a lot of us who live locally, we just kind of go there and we walk around and we pretend to be fans for a weekend. So
which is fun to do. Plus it could be raining, which could throw an interesting wrench in the racing and what it looks like. Hopefully there won't be too many delays if there are the storms that are projected. As we know here in Indiana, we definitely need some rain. All right, be sure to tune into Kyle coming up this weekend. What do you got going on?
Car chaser at the Rotax U.S. Trophy Final in Newcastle, Indiana. Things are starting to slow down on the car chaser front before we get to SuperNat. So, stay locked into the car chaser socials because we're excited about that. We got David Pitt reporting. I want to bring that up every week until we get there. You got to watch David in the pits delivering the scoops and the stories live on the scene,
baby.
Everybody always says that David needs to be on TV. So, just watch car chaser.
You can watch me on TV. You can put it on the TV.
Well, maybe we'll send those tapes over to Fox and we'll get it.
Oh God. Oh boy! All right,
don't worry. Right. They've seen this show, that's for sure. All right, thank you so much for watching us here on Unverified. A little bit extra here into the 9:00 Eastern hour on a Tuesday night. David's got some awesome stuff on his channel. Don't forget to follow Kyle, like and subscribe here on Unverified, and we'll see you next Tuesday after an oval test from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.